You're gonna have to forgive me. We're going bare bones today because I've had an exhausting day. I do not have the energy to put up the green screen and everything else, but I did just see the new Doctor Who, so I still gotta talk about it. Listen. I don't think there's anything that makes me happier than when Stephen Moffat goes scary. And just from the cold open on this show to the way it pans out to stuff at the end that I'm still fully wrapping my head around, but not in a it doesn't make sense way, but in a I'm not done unpacking this story kind of way. I think this was an excellent episode. Just from its initial premise of this sort of notion that are we ever really alone? And how would we ever know if there was something that we just are meant to never ever see? Now that may sound in a lot of ways like familiar ground. Moffat's kind of mined that sort of thing before, between, the weeping angels that we can't look away from, to the silence that we see but we can't remember, to the Passion Narada, which is just the darkness. So it's in that same sort of wheelhouse, but it's a new twist on the idea, and just the Doctor and the way he explains the idea, it's unnerving. It makes you go, woo, which is a great start for any Doctor Who episode. The interesting thing about this one is really how much it reveals about the Doctor, despite the fact that it actually spends quite a bit of time with Clara, and actually with Danny Pink too. Clara in this episode about as good as I've ever seen her. And I'm liking not only Danny Pink as a character, but the way we're getting to know him. And it feels like we know him really well already, despite the fact that this is only the second episode he's appeared in. It's very interesting the way in which the episode uses time with these other characters to tell us more about the Doctor, about Peter Capaldi's Doctor in particular. I just want to come back. I love the dynamic that he's got with Clara right now, that she's not traveling with him, but he's just stopping in when he's got something going on that he really wants to bring her in on. And this Doctor is obsessive. Like the Doctor always tends to be a little bit, he'll get his head on something and he won't let it go, but previous Doctors, Matt Smith especially, seemed to kind of have ADD a little bit. He was easily distracted, not Peter Capaldi. He's got his mind on this and he is not gonna let it go. And it's also a little bit of insight of kind of what happens to the Doctor when he's on his own too much. Not just in the notion that we've seen before of him having adventures without a steady companion, because we've kind of seen that, but when he's literally just him alone in the TARDIS, what goes through his head? Where does his mind go? What sort of thoughts and notions and ideas does he entertain when there's nobody around for him to be impressive to? The episode doesn't spend very much screen time on that notion, but we really get little hints and nuggets of it, and it's great depth, especially for this new version of the Doctor that we're still getting to know, but I feel like we just plumb so much depth with him in this episode. And it's a difficult one to try and explain, especially if you're keeping things spoiler-free, which I always do, unless I tell you otherwise. But it's dealing with this notion of shared dreams, shared nightmares, and sort of starting from a basic question of, you ever get that feeling on the back of your neck? Oh yeah, everybody gets that. Why? Not just why do you get that? Why does everybody get that? That's just a simple basic question. It's the sort of leaping off point that Doctor Who just works so well with. I can't really go into details keeping this spoiler free, but just the way things in this episode tie into things, and like I said, the insight in the Doctor, the way things pan out at the end. Again, I'm still fully wrapping my head around what it was I actually saw, but unless I miss something massive, I don't think I'm gonna be suddenly disappointed once I do fully wrap my head around this episode. I loved it as just a watching experience, and as the more I think about it, the more I'm enjoying it. It really rode a fine line in terms of maybe giving us almost too much insight into the Doctor, but just as Moffat has done teasingly with episodes like The Name of the Doctor, The Day of the Doctor, he's really ridden the line of almost giving us more information than we really should ever have, but he doesn't quite give it to us, and it's a really fine balance. I guess that's about it. Great stuff, top-notch, unnerving. So I kind of addressed this question for myself when I did my list of villains, but what for you is the scariest or creepiest or most unnerving episode of Doctor Who that you've ever seen? Whatever it is, share it down in the comments and let's talk about it. Until next time, this council is adjourned.